Enterprise Management 360.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Tech Chat. Now in today's episode, I'll be speaking to Ian Johnson, who is the Managing Director of Europe at Marqeta. So welcome Ian, and thank you for coming on today's episode.
Hi Max, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here, and today we're going to be looking at the current modernization of the finance industry from traditional banks, digital banks, and obviously fintechs as well. So to kick off the episode, what is the current kind of consumer attitude towards digital banks, and how is this impacting traditional establishments as we know it?
I think the overall attitude towards digital banks is very positive. It continues to see traction versus the incumbents, largely driven by the kind of features and functionalities these digital banks can bring to the market that the incumbents want to bring as well, but they're not quite as quick off the mark to bring them. So I always think about the start of the journey. And if you're looking to open a bank account, the digital banks really have stolen a march in terms of that whole process. It's very slick. You don't need to go into a branch, which, let's face it, not very many people like going to a bank branch. You get a decision kind of very quickly. You can open an account in somewhere between 5 and 7 minutes. So very positive in terms of people actually taking out accounts. The usage of those accounts largely depends on the demographic. So obviously the younger demographic tend to have started to use those accounts as their main bank account. The Luddites, maybe like myself, have got many of these digital bank accounts, but don't necessarily use them for the full banking stack. But generally speaking, I think the market is very receptive to what the digital banks are doing. This is challenging times, so all banks have been challenged. I think by and large, the digital banks have continued to thrive.
Yeah, completely. It's interesting to see that kind of young demographic, but also a curiosity as well throughout a lot of generations. Everyone kind of has questions when you get out digital bank cards, and they've got questions about it, don't they? A lot of traditional banks might be forced at this point to kind of ramp up how they approach their digital transformation or maybe bring plans forward. So from your standpoint, what will this mean for kind of the fintech industry and the impact of that on traditional banks?
I think if you look at what's happened, so what's happened is a significant reduction in the usage of cash. So for justifiable reasons, in this case, health and safety reasons, but cash was already, rapidly starting to disappear. But it's going to be around for a while. We have to recognize and understand that. I think the banks, basically, what's happened through COVID-19 is they're faced with two distinct opportunities, in my view. So the first opportunity is that a broader array of their customers have now started to embrace things like contactless technology. The contactless limit has gone up to £45, as you know, and contactless transactions are becoming more and more prevalent. Probably across a demographic they might not necessarily expect it. So their existing customer base is now switching on to what else is in the market and to becoming more digital, more contactless, and therefore that presents an opportunity for them to accelerate. If they don't accelerate, clearly there are a number of very well-known, reputable digital banks that are there ready to snap up their customers. So they have to do something. The bit that's not quite so well publicized, which is not features and functionalities, is the big challenge is the average cost of managing an account. That the digital banks, right from acquiring an account through to the ongoing management of them, because they are truly digitalized from start to finish, their cost of supporting an account is so much lower than the banks. So the banks find themselves with quite old technology stack, which is expensive to maintain. It's difficult to get new products to market, and therefore they don't have much of a choice but to react to both their customers changing their habits and also the fact that the competitors these days are not another tier 1 or tier 2 bank. There is a bank that was built 2 or 3 years ago, completely digitally, who can undercut them when it comes to the cost of managing accounts. So they have a real challenge to address. What I would say is that none of them are blind to that challenge. So this is not something that there's going to be a gotcha moment with the banks. They do know this.
Yeah, completely. It's going to be a interesting race for a lot of organizations really across the board. They've had this time to kind of plan, and now it's that implementation phase as we slowly come out. So it's interesting to see. And there's one kind of final point I wanted to make here that you touched on briefly in your last answer, but I wanted to kind of look towards the future of what we're hoping to see in terms of, we've spoken about mobile, contactless, card payment area, but how does that relate in relation to the decline of cash usage? Where is that shift coming?
So I think the interesting thing about cash usage is it's something where in certain areas it was just the go-to way of paying. So I give a quite niche example, but if you think about this ever increasing trend of festivals, food festivals, whatever it may be, people going to buy a burger or whatever it might be from a food festival, it's always a case of handing over cash. And over the course of the last few years, that's changed. So you see more and more, really small contactless card reading devices that are available in more and more locations, and you're pleasantly surprised when you can get your card out of your digital wallet and pay.
Yeah.
So it's just becoming more accepted and easier for smaller merchants to accept card payments. So when that happens, it means that people have the real benefit of not using cash, because cash, for me personally, is a pain. You have to go and get it first.
Yeah.
I have to go and transact with my card to go and get the thing that then I can go and make a transaction with. So there's a 2-point transaction to buy something, whereas with a card or a digital wallet, whatever it may be, you can just pay right there and then. So it's far, far more convenient. The thing that the big shift from a cash perspective, in my opinion, the thing we have to be cognizant of is you have to take people with you. So you can't stop people from buying things. No retailer wants to stop somebody from buying something. So there's a process of education for the older demographic about the benefits of using cards, digital wallets, etc., that we have to continue and invest in. And talking about the death of cash is premature. Cash is going to be around for a long time. The balance of power will definitely shift. The balance of power for digital payments, the proportion of card payments of the overall digital payment amount, that will gradually reduce over time. Overall, card transaction volumes will always continue to increase because cash will start to decrease. Mm-hmm. But you have bank-to-bank payments, you have peer-to-peer payments. There are a wide variety of digital payments that are coming that are fit for purpose for certain use cases and scenarios. And the more of those there are, the better we educate people to use them, the faster we will see cash start to decrease in terms of its usage across the retail space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's a very interesting space for sure to see that evolution. Even the past 2-3 years, we've seen such changes. So 6 months to a year from now, we could see even more, but it's interesting for sure. But Ian, all I can say is thank you very much for coming on this episode, talking us through all of this, and I'm excited to see where the space grows from here.
Thanks, Max.
Thank you. And thank you everyone who took the time to watch this episode. We'll be back next week with another episode in our Tech Chat series. In the meantime, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Follow us on our socials at Twitter and LinkedIn at Ian360. And of course, for more great daily content, head on over to ian360tech.com.